Hey everyone, and welcome back to Let's Build. It's been a while since I last uploaded, and I have been hard at work on leveling my character up and getting some new abilities and shouts and such to show off. But unfortunately, I did run into some trouble. I ran into a glitch where I couldn't transform into the Vampire Lord form, which was going to be a big part of the build, and I tried uninstalling some mods and even doing a fresh install, but my save was pretty buggered and I was a bit careless and hadn't made any hard saves before that point. So what I've done now is I've made a new character and used the console to level him up to about 40 and give him some of the abilities and such that I'd have as a sort of endgame version of my intended character. I would have loved to continue the original character, but since I had no saves and I simply don't have the time to level another character up all the way to 40 and then write up a build while doing this video series for you guys. So, as most of you would know, I've played enough Skyrim and written enough builds that I think you guys will trust that I kinda know what I'm talking about. So let's just quickly go through some of the new stuff I've got. So we'll take a look at skills first. So in Restoration I've just stopped at Apprentice Restoration because I don't have a massive health pool, so I don't really need a lot of healing. I've got 2 out of 2 in the Recovery perk, which will counteract the regeneration penalty from the Atronach Stone. And on the left side over here I've got Regeneration and Necromage, which will make my enchantments more powerful, as I'm planning to enchant my armor on this episode. And I also picked up the Respite perk, so that I can effectively regenerate stamina during the day as a vampire. Alteration just pretty standard, up to Expert with 3 out of 3 magic resistance. Enchanting, I've just maxed out the Enchanter perk. Over in Heavy Armor, I've got a few ranks in Juggernaut. And back around to Illusion, I've extensively perked this tree up to Adept, and I've gone all the way up this side of the tree to get all the 10-point level boosts to these spells, as well as Kindred Mage, Animage, and most importantly, Master of the Mind. Now, because of my plus 25% Vampire Illusion bonus, I don't think I really need the Expert Illusion perk, since most of my spells at the moment should be high enough to affect all the targets I'm looking at anyway. Now for Conjuration, I've gone up to Expert over here, and I decided not to get Master Conjuration because of a little trick I'll show you guys later. And on the left side, I've just gone all the way up the Atronach side, since I did take another look at the summon stats and decided to sort of stay away from the Soulcan summons, since Elemental Potency does allow me to have more powerful summons than the Soulcan ones. And while I can still perform Necromancy, it's generally favourable to bring out a summon straight away rather than having to kill something and raise it first before I have something else on my side. So as for my items at the moment, I've pretty much just got a set of ebony armor, which I'll use the Atronach Forge to turn into Daedric later on. The Ring of the Erudite, which you can get from the vampire side of the Dawn Guard's side quests, which increases my max magicka as well as my base regeneration rate, and the Voken Mask, which decreases the spell cost of Conjuration, Illusion, and Alteration, which are my 3 primary spell schools, of course. And speaking of spells, I'll quickly go through what I've got here. So for Alteration, just pretty standard Ebony Flesh, Telekinesis, as well as Ash Rune and Ash Shell, which are both much cheaper to cast than Paralysis, and have a much longer effect, and I think it'll be a bit more thematic for this guy. For Illusion, I've picked up a lot of spells. As you'll see here, the Adept level Frenzy spell affects people up to level 32, which is quite high, because in the vanilla game a lot of the leveled lists don't go above 30. And I also got Frenzy Rune and a few others. I've got the Rally spells as well, which I'm going to try out on my summons, because I have Master of the Mind now, so it can affect Daedra. Nothing in Destruction, and I picked up a lot of spells in Conjuration. I'm going to give Banish and Command Daedra a try, with the Daedra I can summon from the Atronach Forge, as well as pretty much all the conjuring spells. So I did a bit of comparison between the various summons to decide sort of what they're best at. So Ash Guardian doesn't count towards your summon cap, and it's quite powerful, so it can be used in boss fights and situations like that, as it does require a Heartstone to use. The Ash Spawn is a perfect Adept level summon. It is tougher than the Flame Atronach, has a more powerful ranged attack, and also has some pretty solid melee capabilities. However, the Flame Atronach will get more powerful once you get the Elemental Potency perk, which obviously does require quite a high conjuration skill. Conjure Bone Man isn't really that great a spell unless you're going up against people with practically no armor rating, as magic attacks are almost always more effective. Conjure Dremora Lord, everyone's favourite summon, of course. It's pretty much the best straight-up melee damage-dealing summon, but compared to the Potent Frost Atronach, the Potent Frost Atronach actually has almost twice as much health. So the Frost Atronach's obviously a better tank, because it takes up a lot more space, so you can block hallways and such with it, and you can sort of interpose it between you and incoming projectiles, and its Frost Cloak helps to grab aggro from people moving near it. Conjure Seeker is another great Adept spell. It's got a lot more ranged power than the Flame Atronach, and as well as the Ash Spawn. And yeah, so combined with Conjure Ash Spawn, I think I'll write up in the build that Solstheim's a good place to go around level 10 or 15 or so, pretty much as soon as you can get there and hold your own in that area, to grab these two important summons, as they're pretty much perfect for an Adept level character before they move on to summoning the vanilla creatures using elemental potency, as they're more powerful. Might as well show you the Thrall trick I was talking about before as well. So you'll see Storm Thrall costs 570 to cast, and I've only got 533 magicka. So see, I don't have enough magicka. But if I use the Secret of Arcana spell from one of the black books, makes spells cost nothing for 30 seconds. bring out a Thrall spell easily. And Thralls are actually slightly more powerful than their um, normal, I guess, counterparts. So, like, a Flame Thrall is more powerful than a normal Flame Atronach. And before we move on, I'll just have a quick go through my restoration spells. So pretty standard here, just basic ward, basic healing, as well as Poison Rune, which is a alright damage dealing alternative. It does 90 damage over the duration. And for my shouts, I've got Become Ethereal to avoid damage, Bend Will, which I'm going to give a try on some Daedra to see if I can control them with this, Cold Dragon, Dismay, Slow Time, which is always a useful shout, Soul Tear, which I think could work quite well thematically, and it's very powerful, as I've mentioned in my shout guide. It does 300 damage, ignoring armor, magic resistance, everything. Summon Durnavir, thematic again, and Unrelenting Force and Whirlwind Sprint, which are both useful for pretty much everyone. So, going back through some of the stuff I mentioned in the first episode, one of the main things I was talking about looking into is the Atronach Forge. So I've got a few little experiments lined up here. So we're going to try turning my ebony armor into Daedric, like I mentioned before, as well as summoning some various Daedra and trying to see if I can gain control of them via some means. So I'll quickly open up my recipe list on my laptop, 1 second. Alright, so we'll start off with the Flame Atronach, which requires a 1 unit of fire salts, and a ruby. And I'll get my spells ready. So I'll grab Bend Will and Command Daedra. Make a quick save here. Alright, so that doesn't seem to have worked. I'll try Command Daedra. And it appears that would only work on summoned creatures, not this one, so I'll just take it out. I've got the highest level version of the Vampire Lord Blood Drain now, which deals 150 damage and has a 25 point absorb effect, which is quite substantial. So I'm going to try this again, but use a Dremora instead, since they're sort of humanoid, so maybe the game might consider them humanoid for the purposes of Bend Will and that sort of thing. So for a Unbound Dremora, we need a skull, a Daedra heart, and 2 pieces of raw meat. So I've got these 2 legs of goat here. Ah, right, I need to put the sigil stone on first. Right, here it is. Oops. Accidentally left my Bend Will on cooldown, which was probably not smart. Oh, too powerful, okay. equip fast healing and try to sort of weather his attack until I can bend will again. Okay, that didn't work either. Grab my fire salts back too. Atronach might have disappeared. Alright. So, I'll bring up the console and see if I can control a Unbound Dremora with a... control a lower level Unbound Dremora. I might just load a save and place it again and set its level using the console. So I'll grab these things back out and place the Dremora materials back in. Set him to level 10, see if that works. Maybe I didn't target him properly, we'll try that. Right, there we go. Alright. That doesn't seem to have worked anyway, which is a bit unfortunate, but to be expected when you're trying some sort of silly stuff like this. Okay, so I'll unequip my armor, and we'll try turning that into Daedric. So I'll throw in the chest piece first. And to turn an ebony item into a Daedric item, we put the ebony item in, obviously, as well as a Daedra heart, a Centurion Dynamo core, and a black soul gem. I'm not sure if it has to be filled or unfilled, but I'll try it with an unfilled one. There's my Daedric armor, so I'll do that with the other two as well. Try if I can, Okay. See if I can put both of those in at the same time. Might speed things up a bit. The dynamo cores. Okay. Alright, so here's our gauntlets. And the boots. So I'll just put all that on. Now, something I will be sure to mention in the build is that there is a bug on console versions where the boots that it spawns are actually the Dremora specific boots, which you can pick up, but they can't be equipped by the player. So that people on console might have to go with some random Daedric enchanted armor or find their own set of Daedric boots. Yeah. So now that I've got some new equipment, I'll take it to the forge before I enchant it, improve it up a little bit, and then we'll be back with enchanting. Alright, so here I am down at the enchanter in Anissa's cabin, and as you can see, I've used some fortify smithing gear to improve my armor to flawless quality, and now I'm gonna enchant it. So on my boots, I was thinking of putting resist fire, which will help out a lot with the vampire fire weakness. It almost completely covers it. And since I've got the Atronach stone and the alteration magic resistance perks, I won't be feeling a lot from magic attacks. Now for my armor, I was going to put Fortify Conjuration and Magicka Regen on it. And while the duration, or rather the magnitude, doesn't seem massive, the Conjuration buff will help me out a bit since my most costly spells are in the Conjuration school. And the 10% Magicka Regeneration boost will allow me to regenerate even during the day, because while I have the 50% regeneration penalty from the Atronach stone, I do have the 2 ranks in the recovery perk in restoration which covers that. So during the day, normally my total magicka regeneration will be 0%, but with this armor it'll be 10%, which is still more than enough to function in combat, especially considering the Vampire Lord Blood Drain spell only costs about like 10 to 20 magicka to cast. Now for my gauntlets, I was going to put Fortify Magicka, just pretty standard mage stuff. And for my amulet, I was going to go with Fortify Health, just to boost up my health a little bit, because it's a bit low at the moment. So now my stats are much better, so I've got a bit more health and magicka, as well as the fire resistance and all the other stuff I mentioned before. So I think I'll leave it there for this episode, but next time I'll run through a couple of dungeons to sort of test out my abilities a bit more extensively in combat and show you guys some of my strategies I've thought up. See you then.